Hey there, Christopher Cott, Pirate Side Chat 12, I think. Um, as I said last time, I was going to do another video when I was in the painting process. I was hoping to get back to the video like early on when I first started working on this. But once I got it wood burned, I got a little overly jazzed and just jumped into it. But I almost completed the darn thing, and then got about to the point where I'm at now. I decided to hold off and until I could do this video. So, not saying I'm going to complete it in this video. This won't be very long, but just to kind of give you an idea. And as you can see, hold on a second, the way all this turned out with the wood burning and the leaf effect, I mean, it really speaks for itself. It's a cool effect. I think it's very awesome. A lot of people I've talked to just, jaw-dropping. They love the effect. And they're like, oh, you're such a great artist. And it's not that I'm criticizing myself and they think I'm a bad artist, but really that's more of a matter of patience. I mean, I suppose there's some learned technique in it as far as I don't know how to explain this. Learning how to do randomness in such a way that it actually looks random, because nature, like when you're doing leaves and trees and things like that, it has got to have a random look to it. If it's too organized, if all your leaf patterns are flat, if they look two-dimensional, you're doing something wrong. Because you can see in here, let me see, make sure I'm pointing at this right, like in the bush, got these little open sections where you can kind of see the faint shadow of other branches and twigs, and it's also kind of like, I used to cross-hatch that when I ink. With wood burning, I just kind of like went around there and just kind of did some general shading effect, which rendered the same result, so I was very happy with that. And same thing with the trees. Although with the tree at some point, I mean, you have to have large enough sections that you can show and demonstrate, the actual trunk and larger limbs and, yeah, that sort of thing. This was a much more difficult piece than what I thought it would be. Because initially I was thinking kind of monochromatic, where I'd just do everything in blues because she's in the moonlight. I'm like, it's kind of boring. I didn't want to do that. So I decided to give enough light from the moon to kind of cast her in this like blue shade, yet give an opportunity for some of her color and some of the color of the surrounding area to kind of come out. I'm still messing with the values a little bit. That's kind of the hard part. It's a blessing and curse with watercolor. Once it's down, it's down. There's no lifting it up. It's very hard to cover unless you're kind of blobbing the paint on a little bit. That's where sometimes mixed media with watercolor and acrylic is nice. I suppose it could do that, but I don't think for this it'll. In this case, it's working well for me. It may not seem that way, but it is. Because I wanted the initial color, and then I want to just kind of go over it with various shades of blue, darkening the values, because I don't want to cover up the green and whatever color she's, because you can see the red. I laid down some faint white before I laid down her hair, which is kind of like a little bit of a yellowish orange. And I did the white first, so that way it would, the particles from the watercolor would kind of fill in the wood fibers, and it wouldn't really allow for so much absorption of the opaqueness. of the kind of yellowish orange effect, so it would kind of lighten it more. And then I'm going to kind of come in with blue. In fact, we can do that right now. Ever so light, really water it down at first. And we'll just kind of do like that. And so it really kind of gives that effect that she is in the moonlight, and it's casting, that's not really the moonlight. That's the moonlight in contrast to darkness, because in the darkness, in the dark, the darkness, in the dark, we see only, as human beings, in black and white, you know. It's a whole cones and rods thing. So I think I'll just kind of leave little hints where it's not fully hitting it. And then I'm going to come in here with Payne's Gray. Payne's Gray is one of my favorite watercolors. I love Payne's Gray because Payne's Gray is really kind of more like a dark blue. It's like a almost purplish. I use this a lot when I'm making, like, I don't know if I've even posted that on a video before. Maybe I should sometime. I would make these like pirate chest type things. And just ordinary, you know, wood. A lot of times I'd get the boxes from, like, you know, craft stores. So kind of, you know, junky wood. But I would start initially by using umber brown and going over the box, you know, whatever. I mean, there was decorations that don't have that color, but just the areas that were intended to be brown. I would go over with umber brown initially, let that soak in and dry, and then I would go over it again with Payne's Gray, and that would give this wonderful aged effect to the wood that was just marvelous. Here we go. Add a little depth. My wife is a violinist, not by trade, but she majored in music when she was in college. Unfortunately, she was working part-time in a deli and sliced her finger. I mean, it went clear down to the bone. And she had a lot of scar tissue. And it prevented her from finishing out that year, and I think she kind of took it as in her music days were over, and they really weren't. She, I think, was more just, wow, I love how that turned out. I think she was just frustrated, you know. She really wanted to play music, and, you know, now after that she couldn't, and at least for quite a while. And that's got to be frustrating when something you love and told, well, you're not going to be doing this for, what, 6 months, maybe a couple of years. I mean, somebody told me about that with my art, and I'm like, well, what the hell's the point, you know? But fortunately, that's not happened to me. Pull a little of that out, okay. And ever since we met, I mean, because I never got to hear her play, so I just bugged her and bugged her and bugged her and bugged her and bugged her. And after the boys had grown up, we have 3 boys, and they moved out, you know, it's kind of, you know, the typical thing with moms, you know. It's like, what do I do with myself now? And she was already kind of like dealing with that in a sense, because, you know, the boys get older, they don't need their moms as much, and you know, they'll always need them in some capacity, but it's, for the mothers, it's extremely depressing. For the fathers, witnessing their wives going through this, it's excruciating. And because there's nothing you can do to help them, is what it is. And so she started picking up the violin again. And then she heard about this thing called the Terrible Orchestra. And I believe this started over in in Scotland. And it's just a bunch of people that get together that love to play music. And they don't belong to any, orchestra or anything like that. They just want to play. And they say, they require about 2 years experience in playing. Doesn't matter if you played with somebody or you took lessons for a couple of years or, whatever. Or took lessons for a year and continued to play for a year after that. I don't care if you're outstanding or kind of, as long as you can play. And so, yeah. So she looked into that, and she had a lot of fun. It was a little rough at first because my wife and I are very similar when it comes to creative stuff. Ooh, that stuff needs to break down more. Just like me, she puts pretty heavy expectations on herself in a creative sense, which is funny because a lot of times I keep telling her, stop, pushing yourself so hard and just enjoy the process. And it's, can't believe I'm telling somebody that because, I am so hypercritical of myself and my work. I mean, I love it and I love to share it, but at the same time, I'm very critical of it. Grab some more white here, fresh white. But yeah, she's been doing that for, I want to say about 3 years now, going on 3 years. She tried community orchestra once after the gal who was leading the Terrible Orchestra the second year told her she really needed to do that. She needed to push herself more. And basically, staying in the Terrible Orchestra was kind of holding her back. And she tried it, and she said she struggled. And I don't know so much that she struggled. It's not like I think that she's lying. It's just, I think she was telling herself she was struggling. I think she missed the people and the camaraderie from the Terrible Orchestra, where everybody was much more laid back and just there to have a good time, And I think it just overwhelmed her. And we talked, and she might go back to the community orchestra and try it again at some point. But for right now, she's back with the Terrible Orchestra and enjoying that. So that's good. Let me do something here real quick. All right. I think I'm going to make this dress a little bit whiter than her top piece. I'm not sure what to do with it. Maybe I should go with like a green. I think. Yeah, an emerald green, actually. Let's do that. So, anyway, kind of lost track of what I was even talking about. Oh, but obviously my wife's playing inspired me to do this. We bought this cool house. We live in Fort Wayne, Indiana. And got a horrible deal on it. Because everybody says, oh, I got this great deal. No, well, we got kind of a horrible deal. It was the worst time to buy. But my work was relocating, which it still hasn't done yet, which annoys me a little bit. And I lived really close to Austin at the time. And they're moving my lab from Fort Wayne to Warsaw. And where we did live, I mean, it was going to be like over an hour drive one way. And I'm like, no way. I'm not going to do that. That ain't happening. Let's widen that up a little bit more. And so we had to start hunting around. And I didn't want to leave Fort Wayne either, because our church is in Fort Wayne. We got family in Fort Wayne. And so we found this place that was, cut it down by half. It's about a half-hour drive to Warsaw from here. That, to me, is doable. And try to smooth that out a little bit. Anyway, we saw this place, and from when it was built originally, they added onto the back this sunroom, solarium. Everybody's got a different name for it. It's just called a sunroom. I think most people understand that. And it's just gorgeous. and have a view of the backyard and watch the squirrels. And the gal who owned the house, who built this on at the time, was a violinist, a musician. And you can tell with the room, it resonates sound very well. So there's obviously something very intentional about that. And my wife just loves it. So I'm in here doing my art, and she's just down, a little ways here from me and playing her violin. And it's just awesome, I know I got a horrible price for this house, but I don't care because, I love the house. And so that's very cool. And we're going to be here for a very, very long time. Because if my lab moves again, I'm going to have to look elsewhere because I am not moving. Tired of moving? Yeah, I'm good. So, anyway, a lot of that conversation had very little to do with art. But you can kind of see where I'm going with this. And like I said, the whole leaf effect. Maybe we can get a little closer look for you. But just to kind of show you what that kind of stuff can do. It's a really cool effect. And, I don't want you to feel like somehow you're stealing my style. If you do it, I'd be honored. So, if you want to try it. Leave a comment. I'll give you my email or whatever. You can send me pictures of what you're doing. That'd be great. So, anyway, have a great day. Blessings.